I know we've only known each other for 4 weeks and 3 days, but to me, it seems like 9 weeks and 5 days.
Welcome to the Let's Get Growing show on the Urban Gardener channel. I am super grateful that you are all here to join us today. We have a very interesting show today on the Sunday edition. We have a special guest today, and I am very pleased to have her here. Our special guest today will be Robin Gardens, and she will be talking about small space garden hacks, trellises, towers, and succession planting. And that will be happening a little bit later in our show. Today has been a sort of a interesting day as I'm still building up my skills as Enoch's apprentice, and I am very grateful for the patience that all of you have shown about my time in learning how to produce and host a show like this. One of the things that was happening for me today is the very busy background stuff that comes to doing a show like this, but also just my ordinary life. So I was just going to show you guys some quick slides about what's been going on that is not specific to being in the garden, but related to it. And here's a couple of quick pictures of what's going on in my life. And one is canning. I am canning tomatoes in the most basic way, and that's what I've been producing over the last couple of days. And there is nothing fancy going on. It's just preserving tomatoes so that I can use them for further functions. But I am thrilled because essentially it extends the garden season for me. So I am super happy about that. And just before all that snow befell us that I showed in yesterday's videos, I also collected stuff from my garden. Here is a bunch of the squashes that I have saved, and they are to, again, just extend my gardening season a little bit. And I am very pleased to have my squash friends with me. And you'll notice a number of them are a little on the small side, but I live alone. So I am happy with my squash friends and that they were joining us. And another thing that was happening just before all the frost befell us and the snow that came is that someone decided that they no longer wanted a plant friend. And I think plant friend needed to come inside my house and live out a nice little life. So I have grabbed that. I have not analyzed, but to me, it looks a little bit like rosemary, but I could be convinced that it's lavender as well. It doesn't seem to have the typical scents related to it. So I'm going to do a plant app analysis and try and give it a fuller life than it was going to have when someone thought they were finished with the plant friend. And the last bit regarding produce is potatoes. And I salvaged a whole bunch of potatoes out just before all the frost came. This is not all of my potato crops, but this is some of them. It's a range of different things. I don't tend to get very fussy about types and styles. I'm just like, things grew. They are useful to me. They are good quality organic produce. I'm just thrilled to have the results. So if any of you are going to question me about type and stuff, you will be disappointed because I don't know those kinds of things. Fabulous for the people who do. And then one last picture that I was talked into just at the last minute is this is someone you should recognize, looking a little stunned and surprised, I guess. This is me this morning. I frequently go out after a new snowfall. You can see a little snow behind me. And this is me in one of my gardening onesies out there as the Grinch, just clearing snow out on the paths and for the buildings, so the public buildings, so that the seniors and disabled people and really anybody have a better entry to the building. So I go out and shovel for several hours is kind of my morning exercise. And I use different silly costumes to amuse myself and other people. So this is me this morning. So not exactly gardening, but gardening adjacent. It's me being a do-gooder out there trying to make things a little nicer for other people. So that's what's going on with me. And there are other things happening, but those are just a few of the highlights. And that is not all of my produce. I have a lot more, but I'm just showing you guys a few highlights of what I grabbed just before the snow came. And so I'm just going to slide us into our next section. For all of our passionate plant people and garden enthusiasts, welcome to the Let's Get Growing show on the Urban Gardener channel. I am Jay Dixon, aka the J-Bot, and I am your host. There is a great show ahead for today. Our featured guest is Robin Gardens. Her show is Small Space Garden Hacks, Trellises, Towers, and Succession Planting. And the reason I'm mentioning that early on is so that you can start thinking about how that might apply to your situations and what you might want to contribute in the chat areas. I am so grateful for all of our live audience that is appearing in the chat. I'm going to be discussing this a little bit later, but your interaction is highly valued. I really do love that you guys show up for our show and try to help each other. Community is what keeps this going, and we deeply appreciate it. So as I mentioned earlier, I am Jay Dixon. I'm usually the Let's Get Growing facilitator, but temporarily I'm stepping in to do some hosting, producing type duties. And one of the things that can help support this show is for you to like, subscribe, and share for the show. Don't forget the notification bell. And the sharing part is to talk to your other gardening friends about our show and why they should come and join us. When do we get together? We get together every Saturday and Sunday at 11 o'clock Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, and 7 p.m. in the UK. And a huge shout out to those of you who watch the replay. Thanks for joining us after the stream, and to let us know that you are here by leaving a comment below. And that comment below the show is also for you people who are here in the live. We love to have your interaction and your information about what you would like to comment. Have a question or comment. If you ask it here in the live, we might feature it on the show. What's super useful to me, because you guys are so beautifully chatty and interactive, is to have your question or comment in all caps. And I mean the whole thing. I'm a lot more likely to find it. And if I do miss your comment, it is no reflection on you. You guys are just so busy that it's a little hard to find an individual amongst it all. And we're going to have some links and information in the video description after this live. And important to the show is we need some donations in order to help cover the costs for this show to keep going. For direct donations, we'll have information down in that description below for Cash App, Venmo, and PayPal. Those are the ways that have the least amount of fees for us and for you, and the most direct method to get the money. But any donations are gratefully received, and we really appreciate that. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is just say hi to those of you who have shown up in the audience, in the live chat area, and just connect up with some of you. Oops. Okay. So let's see who came early to our chat today. We have Muddy Puddles Farms, evening, early today, just going to make a cuppa. Good to see you here. And Bowtie Life, that is Mr. Botron to us while he's in helping us out in the chat, but usually it is David, and he is been a fantastic help to us. And do look for all the links and questions that he brings about in the chat. He is a super valuable asset to our chat area, and we really appreciate him. And this is Robin popping in early, and we'll be seeing her in person shortly. She is our featured guest for today. And we have Leslie, glad to see you. And Brett, fantastic, good afternoon. And this is Paul from Guten Gardenings, glad to see you. And Shawnee Grows, another channel and a great supporter of the show. Good to see you. And Kevin, glad to see you. Dusty Flats, nice to see you here today. Troy Sutton, glad to see you here again. We so appreciate our regulars here. It really does personally warm my heart to see you guys returning time and time again. And Adam Burley, he is our moderator and has been filling in with some facilitator duties. And if you missed it, and I'm going to be discussing this shortly, Adam was actually our featured guest yesterday, and I'll be discussing that in a few minutes. Okay, I'm looking carefully here because you guys are so lovely, chatty, but I have to look through to be able to find all of you here. And I'd rather not miss anyone if I can avoid that. Oh, sliding in a little bit later is Darth X, and I am super glad that you are here. And I think that's all of our audience for right now. Super great. I'm just going to talk about some of the stuff that we've had previously on our show. Yesterday's show was with Adam Burley, and he did a talk about last call, nourish your soil before winter arrives. And essentially, he was talking about the microbial life and what it does for us as gardeners. And you don't want to miss that show. It is back in the archives of our regular channel. And previous to that, we did the Let's Get Growing show in which I interviewed Enoch. And that was a little bit of a surprise for some of you that we did that. In addition to doing that, we also had a show called the 2025 Gardening Wrap Up. And that was the previous weekend. And I did another version on Sunday of the vegetable garden myths that some of you might be unaware of or want to discuss. We also did a show with the monthly gardening book club, and the guest at that point was Kristen Graves, and she was talking about the Garlic Companion. Andrew Millison was also a guest on another edition doing permaculture in a very interesting artistic way. We also had a show with Gardner Scott, and he did his usual question and answer that we so appreciate. We also saw Dr. Jeff, Gardening is Medicine, and he gave his valuable contributions. So those are previous shows. But what I want to do is give you a little bit of a teaser that in the future, we're going to actually have some future shows coming up. And one of them is going to be next Saturday with Enoch. You might remember Enoch, the host of this show, normally the host. He is hoping to have a community show. And the value of a community show is that you can come in a casual format, still be live, but it's a short period of time. You can promote your channel, promote your event, promote things that you're interested in, causes that you're interested in relating to gardening. Maybe you have a gardening question. Maybe you just want to show off a little bit of your garden. That's what the community show is about. And we would love to see you and have you participate in that community show. Another thing that will be coming up later on will be Gardener Scott will be coming back for his question and answer. And we so appreciate that. And another thing that will be happening is NBC will be joining Enoch and doing the monthly gardening book club, but it will basically be the year in review. So those are the kinds of shows you can look forward to. Look for our notification bells and advanced information about those shows coming up, about precise dates. But the one that is going to be most valuable to you to prepare for is that community show. And that will be possibly occurring next Saturday. And just look for your notifications about that. We'd love to see you. Great. Okay. So the next section I'm going to be doing is actually connecting you up with our guest. And our guest today will be about small space gardening. And she will be sharing her garden hacks and her beautiful photographs. And she is quite informed on these issues. Her name is Robin Gardens, and she has her own garden channel that I recommend that you follow. The information and links will be available both in the description below, but also available in the live stream chat. And we are very pleased that she was here. She's been not only just a supporter of the show for some time, but she is been a very nice helper to me to help create this show. So I'm just going to deal with that. So today we're talking vertical and small space, or space maximization gardening. How to grow more food using the space you already have. If you garden small, on a patio, a balcony, or even a tiny yard, or a half allotment, or community space like I do, this one's for you. So even if you have a larger space, but you want to grow smarter, reduce your weeding, or create beauty with structure, vertical gardening fits every style. We have a guest with us tonight, Robin from Robin's Gardens. She's been a wonderful guest on Enoch's community shows. Robin calls her garden her happy place, a suburban Chicagoland Zone 5B haven where she grows using organic and polyculture methods, minimal soil disruption, and a ton of creative solutions. Robin, for anyone new tonight, can you share a bit about your space, what you grow, what vertical or small space techniques you're already using, and feel free to walk us through any photos as you talk. And here is Robin. Great.
Well, hi, everyone. Glad to be here. That was a kind introduction, Jay.
Thank you so much. I am really appreciative of you being here today.
Oh, thank you. This is my community. This is our community. It's a great place to be. It makes you feel good, doesn't it? Well, why don't we launch right in?
Sure.
I've got some pictures that Jay's got loaded up of the garden, so you can kind of see the bones of my garden and understand what I garden in.
Fantastic. Great. So for those in the audience, we deeply appreciate your participation. Remember, if you want me to try and notice your questions or comments, they're going to be probably dealt with a little bit later in the show, but all caps greatly benefits both you and I. But we've got quite a lot of presentation today, and I am very grateful for Robin for preparing this. She has been fantastic. So I'm just going to get started with some of these images.
All right. So that's an image of the main part of my garden. Those are stone beds that I had designed and built. And that was back in 2019. I had them built like that so that I could age gracefully with the garden. They have a little ledge on the edge that you can sit on or kneel on or step up and into the beds. And it has just worked out perfectly. And a bonus is that it's like a little microclimate there because with the stones and then the gravel in the center, everything warms up faster. So I get an earlier start and I get the advantage of warm soil in the fall and a little bit later than other people do. And then,
Well, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was going to say that it looks like quite an investment in like planning and time and decision making to come to that level of gardening.
It was, and it didn't happen until I was almost retired. But I saved for it, and I don't regret one penny spent.
Okay, I'm just going to see the next picture that is another angle of the garden.
Right. So you're sliding over now left visually, and that's the birdies bed section. Now that happened this year. It formerly was cinder block beds, my original vegetable gardens, and I replaced it with 7 29-inch tall birdies beds, and I love them. I love, love, love them. And then to the left of that, you can see the arbor, which holds my blackberries. And behind it, kind of obscured, is another cage that has more fruit in it. And then I didn't send a picture to Jay, but off to the left, I've got a couple of in-ground beds that have cherry trees and gooseberries and currants and some other things.
Wow.
But
Yeah.
we also have a picture of today, about a week later than those other pictures, after about 8 inches of snow.
Wow.
So this is what my winter looks like most of the time.
Wow, fantastic. So we're just going to move on next to a slide about why vertical gardening works.
Absolutely. It works because you're using that airspace. You know, horizontal space is prime, but your vertical space is basically unlimited. So making use of it maximizes your garden. You get fewer diseases because there is better airflow. It is way easier to harvest vertically. You've got less bending. I'm always keeping that in mind as I'm aging. And it's perfect for small gardens and raised beds, but really anybody's garden. So in the chat, if you'd tell us some of your biggest small space challenges, that would be awesome.
Fantastic. Great. So I'm just going to look to the chat briefly just to see if you have any questions or comments that's occurred since we started. Let's just see, or any new people that may have come in. Let me see. Here is Adventures with Me and T. You've shown up since we started the show. Glad to see you here. Thank you. Let's see if there's anyone else I've missed. Here's just a comment is from Leslie. She is complimenting your raised beds.
Oh, thank you very much.
Great. And here is Brett saying, can't wait to see your garden, Robin. That's one of my favorite things, to see other gardening minds work. You just wait. She has prepared quite a lot of beautiful information about her garden. And let's see. Oh, here's the Fresh Princess. Good afternoon to you. Glad to see you here. And let's see. Okay. If I've missed anyone else, I do apologize, but I am super grateful for all of you for joining us here today. I'm just going to go on to the next slide, if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Okay, so the next section talks about vertical structures.
Right. So you can use homemade designs, DIY to your heart's content. You can use obelisks or obelisks, cattle panels. Bowtie, told us in the chat last week that he's got several in his yards, A-frames, string trellises, and then I use an improvised hoop that's made with ladder mesh that I'll show you. So some of the crops that it's best for are cucumbers, small melons, pole beans, peas, and even tomatoes do well on trellises.
Wow. Yes. I salvage quite a lot of my trellises. We have metal recycling here, and I would say 90% of my established gardens are the metal that I find in those areas, including trellises. And one of the things that I salvage is whoops. One of the things that I salvage is those gazebos with the foldable corner pieces that
Oh, yeah.
use those. I use those as trellises in my very small raised garden. Super handy, very stable, easy to attach to the fencing and things like that. So
And
that.
very expensive to purchase in the nurseries.
But the thing is, once the trellis, sorry, I'm calling it trellis, once the gazebo is kind of done for one reason or another, wind damage, aged out, whatever happened with the materials, it goes into metal recycling. And I'm like, no, stop there. There's other uses. And I probably have in my garden something around 8 or 10 trellises from saved metal recycling. So we're just going to slide back into that slide. Now we're going to talk about green walls.
Okay. So green walls are another option. I actually don't have them, but I love them. Creatively using the pockets of a shoe organizer to make a wall of herbs, pallets used to do strawberries and herbs or springtime greens, modular panels, and then the thing that interests me the most is guttering. I would love to have my strawberries in guttering. Jay, would it be possible to put up the blackberry arbor pictures?
Sure, I can do that. Just one moment.
So while Jay's looking for them, I'll tell you a little bit about this. Oh, there we go. Blackberry arbor. I've had this now for probably, I'd say 8 years or so. They're thornless blackberries. I've got a Chester running up the left side and a black satin running up the right. And it's a great way to have your blackberries. We can walk underneath and pick from inside and around. And just as a side note, you can see behind me that it was last winter. So those are the former cinder block beds that are now the birdies beds. Okay. And then the next picture is early spring this year when the leaves have just really begun to fill out on that blackberry arbor. And then the next one is the cage. The birds would eat every single one of those blackberries if we didn't cage it. So Al and I devised a PVC cage, and I painted that white PVC green so it was less noticeable. Okay. But that's covered then with netting, and we get the berries rather than the birds. I do have to hang reflective things. Sometimes I hang CDs, sometimes I hang these little mylar strips to keep the birds from flying into the net.
Okay, we've got one more slide with the blackberries, and this is the results.
You bet. That is me picking them, and they are delicious. They start mid-July and they go through mid-September, and they give us a tremendous amount of fruit. It is my hero in the garden fruit-wise.
Fantastic. I'm just going to go back to that slide that we stepped out of for a moment. So now we're talking about stackable planters.
Sure. Or if we would do the Borlato trellis one next,
No
would
problem.
that work?
Yeah, absolutely.
So these, believe it or not, are two trellises from the Aldi grocery store. They were $12. I bought them, and they have worked great for a few years now. I zip tie them together or I wire them together in the center and kind of make a V shape. And I have been doing my Borlato beans on them every year. Some people also call those Borlati beans. Um, and then the next slide shows that I've picked the harvest or most of the harvest, and what's left there is going to be seed for the following year. It's very hard to get those beans here in the US. Frankie is the only company that sells them. They're all over in Europe, but not here.
I notice you have a ladder off to the side, I guess to reach the very top of the trellis, at the end of the season.
I did. I climbed up that step ladder onto the ledge and harvested from there.
Okay. Excellent use of vertical gardening. The next slide is still Borlato trellis.
Right, that's me harvesting those beans. I'm standing up on the edge of my stone bed at this point. And it's still eye level. It's really easy peasy.
Okay. And now we're going to see the results.
Yeah, that is the picking from those two arbors. And we like to pick it at this stage, kind of the demi-sec stage, and then I freeze them, and we enjoy them all winter.
Okay. And we've got a couple more slides regarding that trellis.
Yeah, now this trellis is made of ladder mesh. You can get it in the big box store. It is meant to be for reinforcing concrete work. They come in about 10-foot lengths or 12-foot lengths. These are 10-foot lengths. And I take them and I make them into a kind of a hoop shape. And then the beans crawl over the top of that hoop. And I can get some things underneath it that need shade, like lettuce crops in the middle of the summer, until the beans get just too dense and shade everything out. But those work out really, really good. If you ever see the reinforcement mesh, the ladder mesh.
I'd first heard of that with the Rusted Garden Homestead. He'd shown them, and I did try to find it. And here in Canada, I've had quite some difficulty in finding it. So I'm jealous because it seems like such a flexible, small space option, and it doesn't look like we have that here. So I may have to create something or find a way to get it to come here. And we have one more regarding that.
Yep, that's my husband harvesting the Borlatos off of that little unit. I mean, look at how many beans he's got, and he got two bowls that size off of just that small space. So they're good. They also work really well for small melons to do them over the hoops.
Okay. So would you like to go back to the slide or into the tall trellis now?
Let's go to the tall trellis, as long as we're talking trellising. All
Okay.
right. Now that's my tallest trellis. It's 10 foot. It is made out of 4x4 wood. And what I like about the design that we did is you can see through it, because this is a neighborhood. This is my backyard, but I share it with other people as far as view goes. So in the winter, it becomes a little bit nebulous. You can see right through it. The next slide shows how I did it. I did it with these galvanized eye hooks and strung it from the bottom to the top with galvanized wire. I used fishing line the first couple of years, but a bunny got up there and chewed right through that. So now we went with wire. And here's the pole. So what's kind of neat about it is it's as permanent as we want it to be, because that's a big old spike that goes down in about 12, 16 inches and holds the trellis in place. But you just unbolt it there, and you could easily take it out, pull up the stake, and move it somewhere else.
Okay. And we have one more picture from that.
Right. So you can see the top of those wires and how it is using those little eye hooks from the bottom to the top to string the wire.
Wow. And it is bunny proof.
Well, the bunnies can't chew through it.
Okay. Do you mind if we go back to the chat and just see if there's any questions or comments that might?
That's perfect.
Fantastic. Great. Let's see. There's a couple of new people that have joined us. Jim, hey, glad to see you here. And let's see who else have joined us a little bit later. Rob, hey, glad to see you here. Yesterday I missed Rob in the chat area, and I am glad that you joined us both yesterday and today. And here's a comment from Muddy Puddles Farm. I use a lot of teepees from bamboo frames with cord hanging down to wind cucumbers and tomatoes up. Great. So they improvise their own sort of small trellising. And let's see what other comments. Here's Dusty Flats saying, we made a self-water unit using tubs, root net pots that sat in the gutter underneath. Loved it, but the strawberries don't winter in the tubs unless I pull and sink them in the ground. Best berry growth. Wow.
Wow.
So great in the growing season, but not enough, in my interpretation, is not enough space in the container with the soil to protect the roots so that they can last through the winter. That's my interpretation of why that wasn't that. And here is Muddy Puddles Farm saying, I would love to use cattle panels. They're just not a thing here in the UK. Yeah. Okay, I have a little advice for you about that, and Robin may also have something. I couldn't find cattle panels either many years ago, and what I bought instead was what they call construction mesh. And what that is approximately 4-inch by 4-inch metal reinforcement that is utilized in concrete. So you'd be finding it at a hardware lumber type store. And that is used for those purposes. But the catch is that at least where I get it from, it is not galvanized. So it is a reasonably thick metal. It functions in much of the same way as a cattle panel. However, again, it can rust. So I just paint it periodically. I use a galvanizing spray, and then I just simply paint it periodically. Or you accept the fact that it's going to have that rusty kind of look and kind of live with that. But that is something that was more available to me. And I believe for my area, it was a 4-foot by 8-foot sheet, and they use it often in floors when they're laying concrete. So that's another possibility for you to look for. Let's see if there's any other comment.
The advantage to the cattle panel is you can get it in galvanized steel.
Okay.
That helps it last longer.
Great. And here's someone else I missed. I love your name, but I'm not sure I can say it correctly, but I'm so glad that you are here. This person says, I'm in Robin's area, headed out to move snow while I listen. You can treat us like a podcast. We're just glad you came at all.
Yes.
Got almost 10 inches of fresh powder yesterday, as you saw in Robin's garden. Mm-hmm. Yes. Fortunately, got all my beds and containers prepared and covered before the snow. Yes.
Yeah. It's always a job getting it all done and accomplished before the snow comes.
So Adam Burley says, I train all of my indeterminates on cattle panels. They're so durable and last for decades.
Yeah, Jess at Roots and Refuge channel she was the first place I really saw cattle panels being used, lengthwise for the tomatoes and then as arches.
And here's Mr. Botron in the chat. David is saying basically to you that I have 25 cattle panels at this time, but I'll be adding even more in the next couple of years.
Yeah.
You need to go into the cattle panel business, Dave.
And you also have to have a friend. I mean, just being honest, I mean, they're 16 feet long that has a trailer or a flatbed or something to move them easily.
Okay. Yes. It actually is a problem for me, is that most of the vehicles available to me are too small to carry them. So, great. I'm just going to go through.
Yeah, we're kind of lucky in this area. You can rent at the big box store for $19.99 an hour.
Wow.
A little hauler vehicle, which is great.
Yeah, except I live quite rurally, so that's kind of not a thing. Now, because I'm rural, if you get friendly with someone who's got a pickup truck, which they can have mixed feelings about, you can make an arrangement. This is David talking about saying Roots and Refuges, where he first saw the cattle panels as well. So,
Yeah.
So maybe she should be on commission for them. And here's Eddie Lyles, which I'm not sure if I said. Hi, Eddie. Glad to see you. I began collecting cattle panels several years ago, and I now have 12 or 15. Some are 16 feet, and some are 8 feet.
Okay.
Wow. I'm guessing maybe you cut them, or maybe they came that way.
I saw one gentleman cut it in half and then sort of made it like this when he put it back together. So it was a peak at the top rather than, a nice arch. And it really worked well for what he was doing.
Okay, great. I've seen them cut up and used like with other supporting structures as well. I've seen them shaped into the typical U to be used even for greenhouses. People making their own, DIY greenhouses out of them. So many uses for cattle panels. We need to get a sponsor from the cattle panel industry.
Yeah, there's a good video on a channel called Edible Acres about making one into a greenhouse for a very reasonable price.
And Botoy, who is also David, he's mentioning that the term stock panels is commonly used in Canada. Yeah, they're used interchangeably here. Yeah, cattle panels, livestock panels, corral panels. Yes. So, and let's see. Eddie is pointing out that Rural King has the 8 fitters. So he's saying they're actually made that way. Great.
Oh, okay.
Terrific. And Dusty Flats is saying there is goat fencing panels that may be available in areas without the cattle panels. Great. So some valuable advice there. I really appreciate when people are supporting each other and sharing information that's helpful. Janet is Janet McDonald, which I don't think I said hi to you. Hey. Eddie Lyles, she's giving him some advice about the metal mesh having lots of use, saying that in the garden, she also uses a cart with metal wire shelves. Wow. Okay. I'm thinking maybe a yard cart or a garden cart, but possibly not. Mobile kitchen island, and it holds 500 pounds. I think that's what I use, which is a yard cart, garden cart. It's got metal mesh, and the fabulous things is that you basically kind of wash it out when you want to get stuff that's kind of built up in it. So great. Okay.
Sounds perfect.
Yeah. Do you mind if we go back to your presentation?
Absolutely.
Great. Okay. So where were we? I think we had just finished about the tall trellis. So I'm just going to
kind of go into the stackable planter mode.
Okay. Terrific. Just one second. I am still in the learning stage. So we're going to be talking here with the vertical structures about stackable planters. So I thought we'd slide in and then the show examples.
Absolutely. So the stackable planters, towers, I have 2 kinds now. Last year, we made some DIY dollar store stackable planters, 9 levels high, and had 2 of those, very reasonable, made them for $20 a piece, all in. And then this year I added a green stalk. So now I grow in both the DIY and the commercial green stock. Love them both. They both work perfectly. They're awesome for, your greens, your herbs, strawberries, like a Tom Thumb kind of bush pea work out really, really well.
Okay.
Um, so I've got some pictures in there, and this is me loading up my new green stalk, and I bought the kind that has mixed pocket sizes. So those smaller ones are called the leaf, and the large ones I think are called the original. But my combination came mixed, so I had some choices. And then I went ahead and popped for the support pieces because I knew I was in particular going to try those tumbler tomatoes, and I would like to see that. So the next one shows when the tumbler tomatoes came into fruit, how the supports helped keep them upright. It was awesome.
Okay. And then the next is showing
another view, sorry, tickle, of the green stalk, probably like around end of June. It's got strawberries, it's got herbs and marigolds, the tomatoes, and then up on top, I have 3 Bushmaster cucumbers, and I extended it. It looks really, really tall, doesn't it? Because I put my support in a hoop with 3 legs that normally would hold up like maybe a daisy or something like that to keep it from tipping over. And then those cucumbers climbed it, and it worked out beautifully. So there's a hack for you. And
yes, you're extending it. I've never seen anyone do that with a green stalk.
Yeah, just dumb luck. I went looking for something and came up with it. The next picture is a picture of, the cucumbers at the top there, and they worked out beautifully, those little Space Master cucumbers.
Okay. And here is a thing about a show that you did.
Yeah, this is my most popular video, believe it or not, about how we did the DIY dollar store stackable planters. It's got over 10,000 views. So if you want to see exactly how we constructed them, that goes step by step.
So you're showing us a few slides of how that happened.
Yeah, this is one of those keyhole drill bits. That's how I drilled a hole, and we picked the size that was perfect for electrical conduit. So the key here, quite frankly, is to turn the speed on your drill way down slow so you don't bust through the plastic, but it works beautifully.
Fantastic. And the next is
loading a finished one on the electrical conduit tier by tier.
Okay. And here is one finished.
When we first got them put together, that is what they look like. With that electrical conduit running down the center. So that gave 9 tiers. And then those black pieces down at the very bottom, we got in the plumbing section. I took the measurement. We went out to the big box store, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be perfect. Number one, it keeps it up a little bit from the bunnies. It keeps it up from the weed whacker hurting it, a lot of good reasons to elevate it just a little bit, but wow. And then literally, it was $20 a piece all in for those towers.
Great.
And there's loaded up in the spring with some nursery plantings of marigolds, but Oh, I've lost my train of thought. Um, oh, I know. I watched a bunch of other people's videos about these, and one complaint was that they dried out fast because the pockets were small. So I only poked out one hole in each of those pots, eh, thinking, okay, I'll poke out one hole, see how it goes. And if I need to, I can always poke out more, but I can't put them back, right?
Hmm.
Worked out perfectly.
Fantastic.
Just poke in my climate,
Yeah.
just poking out one.
Yes. Um, just a note for people who see these, when these appear in what is for me Dollar Tree Canada, but they do appear in Dollar Tree US as well at differing prices. In my experience, there's two different sizes, one that is very tiny and one that is a more generous size. The very tiny ones have limited use because it is literally so small that, in my opinion, the volume of soil that can be contained there is so small that it would be drying out so much that you'd be likely having to water it several times a day. Now, depends on your climate, depends on whether it's full sun and stuff, but you would have to put it in an area that you'd be carefully considering, and same with what you would put in it, in my opinion.
Yeah, it would be only good for some kind of cactus or something.
Perhaps some of the Mediterranean herbs that love being with fairly dry soil, but again, you'd be watching it and watering it probably a couple of times a day. So, and also in my area, the larger ones that you utilized disappear quickly. So you'll see them appear in your store perhaps around February, March, depending on where you are in their shipping patterns. So if you think you see them and you are trying to decide if you're going to do it or not, grab them quick, because in our area, within a week, nothing, and they do not come back. So,
Yeah, they come out in January. Same thing with the seeds for the dollar store here.
okay.
Yeah,
I'm just going to slide back into the audience and see if there's any questions or comments that might be of interest.
sure.
And they're all interesting, but I'm just highlight some of them. Okay, so here's one from Adam. A tip: when using larger hole drill bits on plastic is to drill in reverse once the pilot hole is started.
Oh,
Ah,
yeah,
how interesting. Yes.
that sounds like a great idea. I just found that the turning the RPMs way down was a key.
Okay. And let's see. Here's a cute comment from Darth X. Who needs weed whackers? Send in the bunnies.
I'll send every one of mine to you if you want.
And here is another comment from Simplify Gardening and the pound stores in the UK. So I'm guessing he's saying they have similar planters there. So great. And here's a question from Leslie saying, how can one make the towers self-watering?
I've seen them rigged up with drip. Uh, so the green stalks come with drip kits, so I would think that it would be easy enough. I'm a hand waterer, so I'm not familiar with drip.
I tend to use hand watering myself because it is inexpensive, and also I'm right up close to my plants, so that the ability for me to recognize disease, pests, any issues or problems I need to adjust, because I'm right there, I am kind of more connected to what's going on with my soil and plants. So, yeah. Maybe I'm noticing, for example, that it's drying out really quickly. So can I move my planter off to an area that's semi-shade? Maybe even I just do that temporarily at the hottest part of the day. Maybe I'm adding mulch so that it's drying out less quickly. So right there, hand watering, I can notice more of what's going on. And here's a nice comment from David. That is a clever use of those cheap planters. So it's a way to create a system that is similar to,
Mhm.
the more expensive ones, but at a more approachable price.
Absolutely. And I was little bit skeptical of the quality, but they have been through 2 seasons marvelously.
One of the things that I do is I store them away in the winter. I don't like leave them out in my harsh winter. In one way or another, they're getting tucked away somehow to be able to survive our conditions.
Same thing. I empty them out, bust them down, and they go in for the winter.
And just a quick hello from Tony. Good to see you here again. Very busy fellow. Glad that you're back here again today. And let's see. Great. And like I mentioned earlier, if you can shout at us with all caps, it makes it so much easier for me to find your questions and comments. And let's just make sure if there's any more before we slide into the next section. And here's a question from Dusty Flats saying, has anyone drilled into a plastic and cracked it a hole?
I have. So I think 2 of them cracked when I drilled in it, and I just took little strips of duct tape and fixed it. They worked perfectly. No problem. The duct tape, that stuff is dynamite.
Okay, great. And here is Eddie making a comment saying, a more approachable price. I like that. I call myself broke. You're broke or frugal, however you want to word it. But the point is, why spend more than you need to?
Exactly.
For quality where it matters, if you can afford that, and have things that are less expensive if that means something to you.
They look, once they are all planted out and growing, they look pretty high end. They do not look like you got them at the dollar store. At least I think so.
Okay. I agree. To me, those photos looked fantastic. Magazine quality, in my opinion. So, do you mind if we just go back to one more slide?
Sure. Should we go to the obelisk?
We were talking about vertical structures. Did we cover the section about hanging planters?
No, we can. The hanging baskets are awesome. I've done cherry tomatoes and basil and mint. It works out nice. My neighbor gave me some strawberries she wasn't too keen on. They have pink blossoms, so they're quite pretty. And they've made it now. It's going into their 3rd year in hanging baskets, coming back. I don't do anything to them, but just leave them go.
Okay, great. So one question that we might have for the audience is, what vertical setup do you want to try next year? We've given, Robin's come up with some fantastic solutions, so many great ideas on what you could use, what you could plant in them. Very valuable advice. Now, we have an extra section for the show here where we have the In the Garden segment from Guten Gardening. So I'm just going to slip into that, and then do you mind continuing our presentation after that?
No problem. Let's see what Paul has to say.
Fantastic. Okay, great. I'm just going to switch out to Paul's presentation.
Well, there it is, folks. Lots and lots of snow in Zone 5, Wisconsin.
Well, hello, Let's Get Growing community. It is what looks to be a winter wonderland. We're getting what the weather forecasters have said is our biggest winter storm here in Wisconsin since 2023. It's actually really beautiful out here. And I'm going to show you a video today that I recorded last winter. I think it's an important video, something that I want us to think about, especially those of us in cooler growing zones where we're expecting snow like this, to put a positive twist on it, because I think sometimes as gardeners we don't always have the most positive view of the snow and of wintertime, because I have an indoor growing setup. I've been growing some stuff already, And I'll get us indoors here before too long, but I don't know that it's always easy to have a really positive view of something that makes us not have access to all of our gardening space. So before I start talking about one way to think about snow and one way to think about winter, I'll show you a couple of things that, yes, even in this snow, are still growing out here in Zone 5, Wisconsin. I'm going to try to keep you close to me to avoid some of what's the wind that's happening out here. You can see some of the green down in here, and some of the green right over here. These are our Brussels sprouts. We got to get those inside. This is kale. Check this out. This is so cool. Lush, bright green kale in the middle of a storm. And I'll take you down to see some of our colored greens. You know, the snow, we're supposed to get 6 or 8 inches, I would say, of snow. And it's just this cold, and all of that is going to have the effect of making all of this really nice and sweet. And so I can harvest some of this now, take it inside and enjoy it. It's kind of awesome to think about when everything else here is dead, everything else covered in snow. I can still be bringing some stuff in. All right, let's go ahead and talk about all this snow and why it's not such a bad thing. It is so peaceful and calm out here. A snowy day, which I think this is maybe the 3rd reasonable snowfall we've had all winter here in Zone 5, Wisconsin. We really haven't had that much. And in today's video, I want to try to give you maybe a little bit of a different perspective when it comes to snow, because you saw me at the beginning. One of the things you got to do when it's snowing outside is clear off the snow, whether it's with a shovel, snowblower, whatever you've got. And so I think a lot of times when we think about snow, we think about the hassle that comes with it, the cleaning of the snow. We think about driving in snow and how challenging that can be. But truly, when it comes to gardening, there's quite a bit of benefit to snow cover, and that's what I want to talk about today. It's so funny when I come out here in the winter time and I think about how little this is going to resemble the garden of a couple of months from now. Here with about 5 or 6 inches of snow that we've gotten this week, you can see it's like it almost looks like a bed that you could sleep on here, comfortable. But I know that underneath this blanket of snow, I've got a layer of mulch. You can see the mulch coming in right here. And underneath that couple of inches of mulch, that blanket of mulch, I've got some beautiful garlic growing, or it's going to be growing once the temperatures warm up. And that's one of the things I absolutely love about snowfall is the insulation that it creates for our plants. It allows for a pretty big difference in temperature depending on how deep the snowfall is. One of the studies I read from a couple of years ago said that there was about a 40-degree difference possible, give or take, with about 9 inches of cover. So if we're thinking about ways in which snowfall can actually protect the roots of our plants, that is a main benefit or a primary benefit. This snow cover can actually help our plants that are maybe a little less hardy in the winter, especially in our colder growing zones like Zone 5, Wisconsin. It can help protect those roots just a little bit more. I mean, oftentimes we come out and we add some mulch to do that initial layer of protection, but then we can add to it with the snowfall. And it's a little bit difficult when we're not getting that snow cover. You know, one of the things that's also true is that we do get a lot of wind in this area. And one of the nice things about snow is as it's blanketing our soil, it's going to prevent any additional erosion or help to prevent any additional erosion. It's almost a little bit difficult to walk out here with all this snow. And one of my favorite things about snowfall, and I read an article about this, it was a 2016 article, I want to say, where they were referencing snowfall as the poor man's fertilizer, primarily due to the fact that there's the addition of nitrogen into your soil from the snow. And as snow comes in, just like rain, just like lightning, just like a lot of the other natural occurrences that bring nitrogen into your soil, snow has the added benefit of typically a slower melt in a singular area versus the tendency of rain to fall. If it falls too quickly, it doesn't have time to soak in, instead it just runs off. But snow, this is going to be sitting here until we get some warmer temperatures, and who knows how long that's going to be at this point. But it's going to sit here, and as temperatures start to climb, it'll slowly melt down into the soil. And so that nitrogen that it's bringing with it has the time to settle into the soil. And one of the things that I understand about this snow as well is it can really help with our soil moisture levels in the spring, so we don't end up coming out of here with a whole bunch of dried out soil. So we need this snowfall certainly to help us with that. And actually, I didn't even intend to talk about this in this video, but now that I think about it, one of the other cool things about snow is that it is like rainwater. And so we know that watering our plants with water from the pipe, which is something we have to do quite often in our indoor garden, while that may be necessary for us, especially when we don't have any snow, it's pretty simple to come out and in a large container gather snow up and then use that snow as a way of watering, a better form of watering for our indoor plants. So there's that additional benefit. You see, the thing is, I'm not a winter sport person. I've never been skiing in my life. I tried snowboarding briefly once. It didn't end well for me. So when it comes to snow, I have to think about it from a different lens, I suppose, than a lot of people, because I live in one of those colder growing zones where we have to expect that there's going to be snow. And since I'm not somebody who's going to take advantage of it for sport, I want to think about how it's going to advantage us here in the garden, especially when I know that the wintertime is what takes me away from this outdoor garden space where I really enjoy spending my time. Although I do remember somebody else talking about an added benefit of the winter, but this was more about the effect of the cold than it was about snow. And that was that the wintertime is great because all those pests, insects, and other things that you don't love in the summer go back to where they came from. So yes, I'm walking in 5 or 6 inches of snow, but I'm not getting upset about it. I know it has so many benefits. I've talked about some of those benefits at this point. Do you know what's underneath this snow right here? Underneath this blanket of snow is a whole bunch of hay. That's our root style bed. And the winter time out here is helping to continue to break down this hay so that we can continue growing some amazing potatoes in here. And even though I know we're several months away from all of this being garden space, I understand that the snow is actually helping us a whole lot more than it's doing any kind of hurt. Well, considering just a couple of days ago we had some 40, 50 degree weather, and now it's 23, 24 degrees outside, and all this is happening. You know, it's amazing what these cooler grow zones have. Now, for those of you who are in warmer grow zones and you don't get the pleasure of dealing with all this snow, well, I hope you're having a great time as if you're still outside. But for the rest of us who are in these cooler grow zones, I hope this video gave you a little bit of a more positive view of what it means to have this snow out here, because it's such an important part of our part of the world. Well, folks, I hope you have a great month, and I'll plan to see you in December.
Fantastic. I so appreciate that video. It gave me a new appreciation for snow, and I live in a Nordic country. It gave me a lot to think about appreciating the snow and what it does for our gardens. Do you mind if I slip back into checking the comments and see what our audience has to say before we go into the next slide?
Perfect.
Okay, great. Let's see. This is not directed to us, but we can certainly step into the conversation and give our own opinions. This is Janet asking Simplified Gardening, who is Tony. Some shred leaves with a lawnmower. What do you shred with? Do you use shredded leaves in your garden?
We sure do. We triple mow them. So mow them the first time, dump the bag out, mow them again and again, and get them pretty fine. And I save 5 or 6 bags in the shed so that I've got carbons for the following year's compost. And then the rest, it goes on top of the garlic, some of the beds. There's not a whole lot that gets scooped out to the street.
For myself personally, I use a blower mulcher shredder. It's like a multi-purpose device, and I made sure I did a bit of research about mine, and it has what they call a metal impeller that is approximately 6 inches across, and it's very effective compared to some of the ones that use cheaper parts, but it does jam quite frequently, so I have to have a certain amount of patience that I quite frankly don't possess. And so I have to kind of deal with the weeby jammin' experience. What I mostly use is a very old lawnmower. I treasure these 1980s level mowers. Yes, that old. Because they were built so solid. So when I chop up my leaves using these really sturdy mowers, you can have ones that have a bag or just have it shoot out to the side, but they can handle a certain amount of the pine cones and branches and stones and things like that that just are inevitable to the bunch of trying to gather up leaves, and they can handle it. So they are super tough. And I think I saw here in the comments is Tony's response. He uses a Works leaf shredder, which is another option.
Do you have to order that one from the U.S.?
Good question. I don't know the answer to that. But the thing is, I know that there are leaf shredders that you put stuff into. There's smaller chippers, there's medium-sized chippers, there's larger chippers, and there's also leaf shredders of different levels of quality of material.
So we wanted to get a chipper for up north, which could also do leaves, whatever. And, we were looking at a pretty expensive, good one. But what we didn't pull the trigger on it was because it is very difficult to get parts right now. And we're not particularly handy people. We'd have to pay to have someone fix it. So we just paid to have stuff shredded. But I would love to own one.
So Tony's saying I did import it from the U.S. He corrected himself, and they are brilliant. Oh, nice to hear. Mm-hmm. Because the bit of research I did, not having anyone nearby that used leaf shredders, was a lot of jamming and breaking and concerns in there. And I use a good sturdy mower for, I'd say, 70-80% of what I do. It rarely jams, it rarely breaks. It's got essentially, depending on the size of your mower, like a 10, 12, 14-inch impeller, mower blade, and I can direct where it's shooting off to. I sometimes run it around a pile and I'm shooting it towards the middle as I sometimes remow them 2 or 3 times. Usually in the late fall, I line up some along my garden beds and just shoot it into the garden beds for my
double work or
into my ornamental areas. And you get a little bit older, and to those of you with youth, vigor, and energy, fantastic. But if you can take something that's a mechanical device that's going to send things from chopping into where you want them instead of a multi-step process, that's what you get excited about. I can finish that and go have a little rest before I get on to the next gardening activity.
Amen.
So here's some advice from Dusty Flat saying, don't get a tiny chipper. Worthless. They swing sticks into your head. Whoops, yikes. And have to be straight sticks or they break. Oh, and I'm thinking you're saying the device breaks, not the sticks. So, yeah. And here's Tony commenting saying, I ran all wet leaves through mine, no issue. Wet leaves? I can't even mow the wet leaves. So, hey, well, I can, but then we be jamming again. So,
little trick, if they aren't too wet, you can blow them around in the yard with the blower and kind of dry them so that you can mow them.
Yes, I've done that. Like We get heavy dew because I live in a lake district near a Great Lake, but also near a pond. So we are very close to being amphibious people. Not quite, but really close. Our humidity is extremely high. So that means, again, our dew is very high. So lawns and leaves and stuff are quite drenched in the morning. So sometimes I'm around once it's a reasonable hour, like you say, chasing them around with the leaf blower a little bit if they're just a bit damp. And then garden gold, got those leaves, chop, chop, chop.
Excellent. Excellent
Okay.
little hack.
So here's someone else making a comment, Dusty Flats, saying, I need the fine shred for these oak leaves. The battery push mower has a bagger and still not as fine as the Flowtron leaf shredder. Ah, wow. Okay. I have mixed feelings about how much to shred leaves because it's my understanding that some leaves you want to leave whole for the good of some of the microorganisms and some of the insect life and stuff, the healthy insect life that you want to have. So some leaves I do not shred. I just simply shift them and move them into effective areas where they're not going to cause a problem. But some is... chopped leaves are garden gold, especially in your vegetable gardens. So let's see. And here's another comment regarding that. Yes, the Works will do wet leaves. The Flowtron will also, but when you slide it for fine, it may clog the wet leaves. Yes. I made the mistake of entirely wet leaves and very drenched after a bunch of rains. Not so good. Not so good. And here's Leslie making her comment saying she cries in conifer needles. I'm envious with all of you with access to leaves. And here's here is Tony commenting saying, however, I have purchased an industrial shredder, but I need to build a frame and a proper motor for it. Oh, Tony.
Wow.
He had made a comment about how much leaf mold he likes to have, and he's moving up. He's moving up. Gradual process as he builds onto those parts. Let's see if there's any other comments relating to this. Here is Dusty saying, ugh, my inherited Flowtron leaf shredder finally gave out, but was frugal and bought a Works. The Flowtron had an adjustment for fine shred. I missed that. Yes. So great. And here's Leslie saying, the 80s were only 20 years ago. No, Leslie. We all like to believe that, but it was a while ago. Okay, so let's see if there's anything else that's important here. Here's Tony saying, I shred around 21 one-ton bags. Wow. This produces about a half a ton of finished leaf mold, and I will show it in a video at some point. So there's a teaser for you folks. Another reason to go to his website and his channel to learn about what he does with that. Jealous, but my bones ache just hearing about it. And here is David saying, I mow most of my leaves, but I also have a leaf blower that is a vacuum shredder, as I do as well for beds, and allows me to get where the mower cannot. Yes. Sometimes I'm out at other properties where mowing it fine, the property owner does not want fine leaves. They want all leaves gone and no sign that leaves ever existed. And so I am very leaf greedy. So frequently what I will do is I use the device that he just mentioned. I suck them up and shred them up, and then I basically put them into tubs and take them all away. And they're grateful that they have their pristine green lawns. I'm grateful because I have an excessive amount of leaves and move them along for my gardening purposes. So that was great. Okay. So I'm going to just move on to the next section, if that's okay with you, about
It's good.
Great. And we so appreciate our audience. We are grateful for the information that they share with each other and share with us. To me, building community is a huge amount of why we have this channel, and I deeply appreciate all the contributions. And so the next slide is talking about the best crops for vertical growing.
Well, pole beans are, numero uno. I like varieties like Vortex, Kentucky Wonder, and of course my beloved Borlados. But Scarlet Runners are also a really nice one with an added benefit. They have beautiful foliage or beautiful blooms that attract hummingbirds. So imagine my big 10-foot trellis loaded with scarlet runners and multiple hummingbirds. It's quite a sight. Peas are great. I tend to like Little Marvel here because they come off quick. As far as cucumbers, there's a lot of varieties, but right now I'm hot on Socrates, which is an F1. I'm hot on it because I have cucumber beetles and powdery mildew, and it muscles through both of those. But, like lemon, Armenium, a few of the varieties are great as well as far as flavor goes. Small melons like, let's see, a Minnesota Midget, a Sugar Baby, Kajari, Cajo. Those all work great on a trellis or a ladder mesh hoop. Small squashes, like the butternuts, the butterscotch, the honey nut, those work out well because they're smaller. The climbing zucchinis work out good. And then, your indeterminate tomatoes, like we discussed before, those go great up on a cattle panel. I personally use the really solid, isn't going anywhere, steel ones. They'll outlast me. But you can also do your flowers like nasturtiums and morning glories. And then, of course, strawberries are excellent for the towers. Or they make actually strawberry vertical plant pots that commercially, those work great. Lettuces, herbs, they all work good.
Okay. And a prompt for our chat area is, what crop do you wish you had room for? Vertical growing is a very good option to introduce more plants, more types of plants than you ever believed you could manage in the space that you have available to you.
For sure.
Great. How do you feel about us going on to the metal towers, the metal obelisks?
The obelisks, absolutely.
Okay, fantastic. So here's one.
So these were a birthday present to me because they were a bit more expensive because they're decorative, but these are so strong, so amazing, worth every penny. I do take them in the winter. They get put in the shed, but I love them. I've done peppers in them and tomatoes, and they work out perfectly. The next one is a much more reasonably priced metal structure, and I did my Anaheim peppers in these this year. And my Anaheims got to be about 4 foot tall a piece and about 3 foot wide, and these worked out great.
Okay. And here's the next one.
That is the mature Anaheims. You can't even see the obelisk inside any longer. It's so covered. And I got a total off those plants of 203 Anaheim peppers. And I'd say the average size was about 5 inches.
Wow. Like you said, they've taken it entirely over. So the structure, beautiful in the winter time and when you don't have the abundant crops, but then the beauty is taken over by what happens with the growing season.
So interestingly enough, and there's my first harvest, which was 65 Anaheims. But interestingly, we get storms and a lot of wind here. And I just had an average summer storm that had probably a really good gust of wind, and two of the branches broke on the one Anaheim. And I was like, oh goodness. And they were just loaded with fruit. And I'm like, what can I do? What can I do? So I got a couple of garden poles and wired them up to the garden poles. And then I took my ever loving duct tape and I duct taped the wound, where the branches split. And okay, it's either going to work or it's not at this point, right? Worked perfect. So there's another hack for you. Duct tape for the win.
I don't think we currently have any Canadians in your audience, but I'm just going to give a little shout out to Red Green, who was a comedy bit that was based on his love for duct tape. It was one large portion of his humor.
Okay.
But the thing was, it's a joke, but it was actually like practical. Like a lot of what he did was a slight exaggeration, but it was many aspects of it were real and practical. So we'll call it educational entertainment, Canadian comedy. There we go.
Absolutely. It's crazy. You're desperate. You're out there like, oh my God, it's in trouble. I've got to do something. So try
Okay.
something.
So the next section is actually about how to create similar structures out of branches. Do you mind if we slide into that?
Absolutely. Let's go there.
Okay, great. So here's one.
So this is up on our property in Door County, Wisconsin. And I went around and just gathered branches from the woods on the property. And we made this obelisk. And it's kind of hard to see, but there is also wrapped around there grapevine, some wild grapevine in a spiral. But here's me constructing it. And so it was basically free. I just found some zip ties we had laying around. And the zip ties were important because it really added the strength at the joints that was needed. But I didn't really like the look, so I covered it up with jute twine. So it looked, more rustic when I was finished.
Okay.
But cheap DIY works perfectly.
Okay. And here's another angle of that as you're constructing it.
Yep. And that's me covering the zip ties up with some jute twine just for the pretty, to make it look good. And then this one and one more that we made went into the kitchen garden project, which I was involved with up there. It was part of the Master Gardeners and the Seed Library, the Door County Seed Library. And it held up, worked beautifully. They're going to last for a few years. I just loved it. I saw something on Pinterest and I said, I can do something like that. Let me play around.
I actually did a similar thing with my partner here, who, when we first started dating 23 years ago, said, oh, about this gardening thing. I'm so glad that's of your interest, but just, and we wound up buying some bamboo, the thicker kind of like 1-inch type bamboo at one of those dollar stores that we'd been talking about, and essentially created a ladder structure. And we did much of the same construction techniques that you talked about, and then covered up the structural part with the pretty, which is basically using jute twine to kind of have a rustic ladder. And that was, another DIY type of trellis that we did. And I'd have to tell you, my insidious plot to get him gradually into elements of gardening is working. I'm not trying to fully convert him. I'm trying to find the relevant parts of gardening that has meaning and value to him, and make that available to him. And then he can decide for himself what does or doesn't have value. And it's working so well that some of the ornamental stuff, he has gone off and started. My first anniversary, what we called our shrub-iversary, our first anniversary, I gave him a small shrub because that was all that I could afford, but it was also a value to me. And gradually over time, he felt value in those shrubs and started integrating those into his small space. He has a very small lot where he lives in this tiny home village. But gradually he bought more and more of those shrubs, and then he started investing in the larger versions of those shrubs, same ones but at a further stage of growth, for their efficacy and beauty in his space. And then ultimately he started buying the full-sized ones and putting those in place. And what he started doing was, instead of referring people to me of, oh, you ask Jay and she can tell you how that works, where you buy them, how you plant them and stuff, he's like leaving me out of it entirely, doing little tours to people who say, oh, what's an alternative I can use for fencing? And going, here, come to my place and let me tell you how I planted them, where I got them and stuff. So it's like, when I heard about it, I went, yes, it's working. And for our shrub-iversary for many years, it was always shrubs or plants of every year. So he now has his own garden plot. He is minimally involved with it, but did obtain a vegetable garden plot. And a portion of the stuff that comes out of there is actually for his parrots, which are pets. Or maybe he's the pet for the parrots. I don't know how that works. But the short version is they list off through him what they want each year. So they like beans, they like peas, the little one that's a really very cute one. They're both cute, but the little small one, she expresses an interest in carrots. She really likes gnawing on the carrots. So there has to be a certain amount of carrots put in for them. And I got a little bit hasty in my garden growing, and I put squash into his plot. And he, after a while, got to recognize the plants and went, what are squashes doing in my garden? Because he's not interested in squashes. And it's like, well, the space was open and I just had to get some planting done. And he's like, okay. Yeah.
Well done.
Over time, what wound up happening was my very tiny garden spots. We have a community garden space here that are 10 by 20 plots that are 43 of them. And in my limited space, for some of the things that I prefer to do with my garden space, I could no longer do it, even going vertical, doing some of the things that we're going to talk about in a short while about how to effectively use a small garden space. I'm still so plant greedy, wanting to do things like can and preserve and share with others and share with, community groups like the food bank and stuff. My partner's needs, his birds' needs, and my need, and my also wanting to share with the community, it just became a lot to ask of a 10 by 20 foot plot. So I got him to have his own so that we have more space for all of us to grow what we hope for.
Sure.
That's great. Do you mind if I slide back into the next slide in our presentation?
That would be awesome.
Great. Okay, so designing for small spaces.
All right. Here's the important part. You have to think about the size of the plant. So is it a tall plant? Is it a medium plant? Or is it a low grower? And then the one thing that I could instill with my years of doing this is you have to put the big ones on the north side and the little ones on the south side. It's just how it's going to work out the best, so that the plants aren't shading each other out. Unless, of course, you want that. I mean, I actually purposefully plant some tomatoes, some indeterminate tomatoes next to my chard so that it gives it a little bit of relief from the sun. Also, you've got to explore the world of compact varieties, those smaller patio peppers, the dwarf tomatoes. I did a beautiful one this year from the dwarf tomato project team. It was called a Purple Heart Dwarf. It maxed out maybe 4 feet. It was more like 3.5 feet tall, but I got about 60 tomatoes, good sized tomatoes off of it, and they were delicious. Herbs, those are awesome to do as your low grower or up high in hanging pots. Fruiting crops, they can go, all over the place, whether it's a tree, a vine, or a bush. And then this is something I personally am not that familiar with because I don't have drip irrigation, but I know a lot of people that do, and it provides really consistent and when they have got a busy life. I mean, I'm retired now, so I love to water by hand, but it'll provide consistency for the plant. And those are my best thoughts on that.
Okay. So one thing that potentially could be discussed in the chat is, how do you design your small space? Does anyone have tips to share on how they've conquered growing in a small space? Do you mind if I go into the chat to just see what they have to say about that?
Sure.
Great. Fantastic. And I just want to thank you so much now, and I certainly will try to remember at the end. Robin has spent a tremendous amount of time and energy in a very busy time in her life to create this presentation for us, and I so appreciate that. I'm just going to give a little side trip here and mentioning what is keeping you so busy in your retired life right now.
Well, I am studying to be a master gardener, so getting my master gardener certification. And, I didn't think it was going to be quite so arduous as it has been. It's, the botany, your monocots, your dicots, all of that stuff. Just, it's a bit much, but I'll get through it. I will.
Yes. And my understanding is it was on a surprisingly tight time frame for you to.
Oh yeah, I thought it gives you an extra month to do this, so into the middle of January, but I have to have it finished up by the 9th of December because I want to go on and do the Master Gardener course. So they have to have it, shown completed by the 9th. So it added a little pressure when I found out I had a month less to do it, but neither here nor there.
Yes. So taking time out for this, we deeply appreciate this. I almost feel like we should be writing little notes to them going, please give her a little leniency. She has taken time out to do public education to inform us about a very important part of gardening. And, any leniency, any extra time, please. But I don't know if that's going to work. But that's in my head. That's not necessarily in reality. So
well, then another sidebar about it is you kind of have to unlearn some of your thinking because it's not what's in the curriculum. So like, no, I wouldn't do that. Well, okay, that's what the curriculum says, so that's what you would do, right?
So I'm just going to go back to the comments and see if there's any questions or comments that people have that we might want to highlight today. And again, those of you wanting your comments to be seen, shout it out to me in all caps because you are such a busy place that we are spoiled for choice. So here's Bowtie, who is David, or Botron, Mr. Botron. Robin, do you log any of your time making videos and subjecting yourself to interviews as part of your volunteer work? I think that comes after her certification.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not going to have any problem, making my volunteer hours, especially because of the seed saving and all of that I've been involved with for so long with the Door County Seed Library.
And here's another comment from Dusty Flats saying, loved botany class in college. I should have pursued it further. Still can. Continuous learning. There's so much available to us now,
It's kind of like me in the lawns chapter. No. My lawn has violets and dandelions and creeping Charlie, and it's fine by me. I don't need grass.
Yep, I'm the same way about mine. If it's greenish and it's nothing harmful and potentially beneficial, good. Leave it alone. Let it be, Not everybody feels that way, but that. And just on that point, Tony from Simplify Gardening, never too late. Yes, I've had a learning attitude my whole life. But Dusty Flats is following up saying, lol, yes, Jay, but not as a career. Not trying to push it into being a career, just as a continuous learning experience. Not everything has to be quantified to be a money-making activity. Some of it's just for self-satisfaction to share with others, as Robin's doing with us today. And here's a question. Whoops. And this is from the name that I have trouble saying. Perhaps you can help me through it someday. Saying, Robin, who and where are you getting the master certification through?
I'll be a Wisconsin master gardener because we have the other place up in Wisconsin, and that's the group I'm the most involved with, is the master gardener group up there in Door County rather than here. It's through the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
And here's a comment from Dusty Flats. New flower vines were tough to get trained upwards. If you want a nice screen, Mino Labata will do it. And I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. Okay. And here's a comment from Darth saying, parrots might like squash seeds. The interesting thing about seeds is that seeds and various different things, the biology of parrots is different from human beings. So you have to be, because they're very sensitive creatures, you need to check from multiple very reliable sources before you feed anything to parrots. And many seeds, for example, from apples, are very, very, very toxic, and they have tiny little bodies. So I would be extremely hesitant to feed them anything, and especially including seeds, which often contain more concentrated amounts of some of the nasty chemicals that can be bad for them. And I'm not talking about things added to plants. I just mean inherent in them. You have to be super careful with that with parrots. So it may be a possibility. I am no parrot expert. My partner has them, and I try to do beneficial, useful things. But when I'm the parrot sitter, I am extremely cautious. Nothing new happens until it's checked with him as the owner, and we check multiple reliable sources. And here's someone saying, I love parrots. Yes. The thing is, some things that I do and he does are sort of unique and interesting things in life. The catch is that when you have something unique and interesting, you have a lot of people come up to you and ask questions, and they're very eager. But the thing is, a lot of people have extremely simplified ideas about parrots and what they would be like to live with. And we are discouraging to people because they are a severe commitment. Essentially, you are adopting a constant 3-year-old who wants to make trouble, like Dennis the Menace. And they are cute. They have their own personality, but essentially you have to build your life around them and their needs. Not on an hourly basis, not on a day-to-day basis, minute by minute. You have to think about all the different things that they need in life and make it so, because they are now depending on you. And parrots are a very vulnerable species in various ways. And I won't discuss at the moment, for negativity reasons, the things that can happen and are negative that can happen. But the short version is, it isn't a Disney life. Okay, it is a life in which you have to do a extremely carefully researched thought before you adopt a parrot. And they are wonderful, but you have to know what you're getting in for. And the cuteness is fabulous, but you shape your life around their needs, and it's not always super happy. So great. And let's see. And someone is mentioning, I never heard of metal zip ties. So that's another option for when you're cinching things up that can work in certain possibilities, certain situations. And that comment is based off Leslie, who's saying, I have metal zip ties on some of my trellises. Great. And here's another person commenting. This is Dave again. He's saying, David, I have UV stable zip ties that are still holding up on cattle panels 4 years later. And that's in Florida. So he has issues about humidity. He has issues about sun. So that's working for him. Great. And here's someone commenting about the scarlet runner beans. Are they best for green beans, or do you grow them until mature and store them as those big dry beans for winter bean soups? Hungry thinking of beans, ham and lots of onion. Just as a side point, before we answer that, frequently Robin, Devin the Dirt, Shawnee Grows, Carol, who's from South Florida, Sunshine Tropicals, they get together and have various different discussions that are on live streams on various different channels, but they keep discussing food and delicious recipes. And I can tell you, I don't last very long before I'm off getting a snack, necessary or not. That snack is happening because they keep discussing delicious food, and it's an issue for me. So do you know anything about the scarlet runner beans? How are they used? Are you still there, or did you get frozen? I think you might be frozen. Let's see if you come back. So I'm just going to continue on and see if Robin can hear us and if she comes back in terms of being frozen. But the short version is, my understanding is that you can use them either way, but more research may be necessary. So let's just see. If I could just hear from the audience if we are still showing and if you can still hear us, because Robin is temporarily frozen, and I just want to see if it's the whole show or just Robin. So if I could just hear back in the comments if you are still seeing us. So could someone just say, hey, it's okay, we still see you. Yeah, so Robin's going to stop out and probably come back in a moment. I will put her in. Fantastic. Great. I'm just going to continue with the comments for a couple more minutes, and then we're going to go back to her slideshow when she is returned. So I'm not sure if it's what level of issue it is for her, but I will just continue on. And this is a bit off topic, but I want to promote that Eddie is saying, I just got a notification that Shawnee Grows has a new video drop. So that's great. And the scarlet runner beans, I'd have to say, just to clarify the answer, I don't have the sure answer for that. I would need to do a little bit more research. So let's bring Robin back. Hey.
Was it just me? Am I the one that?
You? Yes, me and the rest of the channel. We went on without you. We just looked for more comments, and it was all fine. My thought now, glad to have you back. Welcome to our show. Too much freezing going on there in Chicago.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's
technology, live streams. I kind of told you backstage that it I described it, I think, as wrestling or dancing with a wild animal. Live streams, there's just so many factors of what can go wrong. But what's going right is our discussion. Do you mind if I slide back into our next slide?
Absolutely.
Okay, terrific. So let's just go to that. And this one is about, we designing for small spaces. We did that. So the next section will be about showing the pots that you had available to us.
Excellent.
And so here are some pots.
So I had a little section up at the front of that new birdie's bed area. So I went shopping in my stash, and I kind of pulled out some terracotta and green ones that all looked like they went together. And I made a little menagerie of mostly flowers. There's a blueberry in there and a tomato. But the bottom line is you can use containers to grow almost anything. Off to the far left, you can see those big barrels. They've got rhubarb, chive, mint, and a series of potatoes. And they work marvelously in pots. So pots can be your friend. And the beauty of them is they are mobile. They, when the sun moves, you can move them. Oh, this is a little bit later in the season, about July time. You can see at the very front there is the tomato looking back towards the house. And that's a pixie cabbage, by the way. Oh my gosh, is that tasty?
Pixie.
Yep, that one was, it was 8 pounds. But the other pixie plant that I had actually made 5 small heads. So it was like a treasure hunt of what I was going to get next with those pixies.
Okay, great. And I can see that you've done decorative flowers. Of course, pollinators and attracting them is very important to your vegetable garden, and having some beauty in there as well. Flowers do so much for us.
Absolutely.
Great. Do you mind if I go into the next thing, which is the bed?
Absolutely.
The bed?
The bed. So I like to go thrift shopping. I know Jay does too,
Yes.
at the charity shops. And we were out shopping one day with our favorite neighbor friend who likes to thrift shop also. I came home with these. I bought them at the Restore, which is the Habitat for Humanity store. And they were going to go in the back. They were going to be part of my vegetable menagerie. And I drove up and I said, I wonder if it would work on that bed going up to the front door. We stuck it in there and it's never moved since. And I did sweet peas up the one closest to the door in the back. They were beautiful. And so think about getting stuff for the garden from thrift stores. You can save a ton of money and no one else has it. This is unique to my garden and to the whole area. This is about July time. You can see now we've switched over from the more spring flowers, and now that pink one is the first of the poppies that'll all spring up in this bed, and some alliums. And then about a month later, the zinnias and the snapdragons will spring up.
Great. And our last slide is to talk about succession planting, about how we can get the maximum output for the planting that we're doing.
Yeah. So what I have learned over all the years of doing this is you got to plan ahead. Otherwise, you're not going to fully maximize your soil, right? And some things that work well for me is planting peas in the spring and then following that up with summer cucumbers. Spring radishes, follow it up with bush beans. As a matter of fact, bush beans tuck in anywhere where a spot opens up nicely. Spinach, followed by basil, lettuce, followed by fall greens, onions, followed by kohlrabi or broccoli rabe, garlic, followed by carrots or beets. Carrots and beets are also another one I find easy to tuck in all over the place as well. But making a plan, that's how you maximize your output. Some things to keep in mind is know your frost dates. So you know how early you can get started and how late you can go. And then know the length that your crop is going to take. Like my celeriac, it's a space hog. It takes real estate the whole time from the beginning of spring until the first snow flies. But then there's short crops like radishes, which can come off in 28 days or less. And it's important, if you want to maximize your space, to just make use of your soil and have no empty soil. And keep things around at your ready, one of them being compost and amendments. So if between successions of plants you need to enrich the soil a little bit, you can do that. Also, I like to keep things growing in little cell trays so that if there is an opportunity to tuck them in, they're ready to go. That way they're already past the seed stage and growing, and I'm going to get more produce in the end.
Wow. I've heard of other people doing that. I'm not at that level of organization, but I appreciate that. And I'm envious of people who have that level of organization, and I can see the benefits of it. Great.
So, Jay, I got to tell you, on Instagram, I saw about the snail roll method. And I said, oh, I need to try that next year. But I wish I would have started it right away because next year was this year and I tried it. And that snail roll method works out so wonderfully. You get nice long roots. It's in a very compact little roll, so it doesn't take up much space. I've got a video about the snail roll method if anybody wants to go have a peek.
Okay, great. Terrific. I want to thank you so much for the time and the energy that you've given to us. One thing I would like to say is to remember that you don't need more space, that you just need to make your space smarter. And I'd like to thank you all for hanging out and see if we can grow more in less space. Stick around as I sort of promote the shows that will be coming up next week with Enoch. But I want to just say to you, Robin, I so appreciate the time and energy that you've given us, sharing your expertise with us. So valued. I've certainly learned some things, and I hope the people in our audience feel similarly. Such a busy person, going to be a master gardener for sure, and taking this time out for us.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your time today. And I'm just going to get people to stick around as I promote future shows. Thank you. Okay. Thanks, everyone. I just want to remind you of a couple of things about the show is that I would like you to like, subscribe, and share. We are here every Saturday and Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, and 7 p.m. in the UK. A huge shout out for those of you who are watching on the replay, and thank you for joining us on the stream and to letting us know that you're here by leaving a comment. And just a quick reminder for some of you that we will be enjoying Enoch as the host once again next week. We'll be having a community show. And if none of you have seen a community show, we've actually had a couple now. And if you go back into the archives, you will see a couple of community shows. They're an opportunity for people from the audience to become part of our show. It's a way that you can get used to lives, but it's just going to be a few minutes of your time. So for those of you kind of uncomfortable with the concept, this allows you an opportunity to join us and be part of our community. You can promote your channel, promote an event. Maybe you want to talk about an event or an activity that you're trying to create or develop. Perhaps you want to broach a problem. Maybe you don't have a channel to promote, but perhaps you're having an intriguing or difficult gardening problem and you would like to present it to us so that we can try to solve, because what we are is community and we greatly value you. Also coming up will be MBC, who will be talking with Enoch about future shows in which he will be discussing the book club, the monthly gardening book club, and they're going to be doing a year in review. We will also be seeing Gardener Scott. So those are just some tasters of the types of shows that we will be having in future shows, but do watch out for the promotion regarding this community show because you can be part of that show. I'd like to thank all of you for your time and attention today, your patience as I become an apprentice and trying to learn how to host a show. I am still in the learning stages, but I do deeply appreciate your time and attention. And one final message I'd like to give to you is let's get growing.
power out,